I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. This week, would you prefer minority or majority government?
Probably a minority government. This way it keeps everybody in check.
Probably a minority because it kind of keeps them in line.
My preference would be a majority government. I think that there's more action done.
Well, to me it doesn't matter as long as they're performing some kind of function.
But first, when COVID hit earlier this year, no one could have predicted the profound effect it would have on businesses and the livelihoods of scores of Canadians. The Prime Minister, like any other government leader around the world, had to act fast, investing billions in keeping businesses and people financially afloat. But critics will tell you as soon as the money started rolling out, there wasn't enough scrutiny as to who got what or how we're going to pay this back in the long run. So we took this question to you.
Are you satisfied with the way your tax dollars have been spent during the pandemic?
For the most part, yes. About 85%, yes.
Why?
I think there was a lot of people in need, and I think they did a good job of getting to those people. You know, there'll be cases of abuse of it a little bit, but that happens in all systems. And there was, I mean, it's a once in a, this has never happened before. There was no plan for this, so yeah, I think the government has done a good job.
If there would be a better way, they would have found it. I think it's okay. You know, it's there is so many things that we don't know about this disease. They do their best, and that's, you know, that's okay. What else can we do, you know? If we have no, you know, they change their policy every time they have new information. So this is what they should do. That's okay.
I think so. I think. Well, they supported a lot of people who would otherwise, you know, not be entitled to EI. So I think it was a good step forward, and people are opening up slowly.
Right, sir?
Yes, I agree. I think they've done a great job so far, actually. That was really necessary, and I think they've done really well.
No.
Why?
Because I think they've missed the point of all the money they're spending. Well, especially on the Liberal side, on the federal government side, they're just spending money needlessly when people are out there. And I can understand what they've said about providing them with a salary, but now it's getting to the point where they can't find decent workers to fill in the void where it's needed.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they've been utilized pretty effectively. I didn't take CERB. I worked through it, so it didn't really make a difference to me. But it was nice to know that people didn't have to worry about that sort of thing when they were out of work.
No, not really. Like the programs, there's good ideas there, but they're inflated. And people are getting money paid to them that should not have been getting the money, and people are being double paid, and yeah, programs are just mismanaged.
I am actually. I'm a small business owner, and as a small business owner, you know, when I look at my books and I see at the support that has been provided by government, it's what's kept us in business. It's what's kept me employing people. So yeah, absolutely.
It was a necessary expenditure by all levels of government, but the question is whether it's all traceable. That's my concern, that, yeah, Trudeau's announced all these fundings like CERB and everything, but has it really been truly tracked of knowing where that money's gone?
That's a tough one, just because, I mean, I've been lucky enough to save my job until this weekend. And so now we'll see if it actually benefits me and where it's going and how to move forward. But, you know, when it comes to my friends and family, I think it was spent properly.
Absolutely not. It's been overspent. There's been more money passed out and no way of telling us how we're going to repay it.
Yes, on balance. I'm retired and finished my career. I'm in a comfortable financial position. And worldwide, it's pretty evident that if central governments did not come in heavily, that your country could go through a recession, a deep recession. And it's hard to modulate these things. I'm not in favor of a guaranteed income. I do have heard anecdotal evidence of people that aren't going back to work for $1,000 a week because they can get $600 a week from CERB, and that's a concern to me. So there comes a point that'll have to be stopped, the program.
I think that the government has done the best it can do under the circumstances. I worry that sometimes it's like throwing money at it
but I don't know how we can fault them because I can't do better.
There was just a flood of people applying for CERB, and in my view, a lack of oversight about who got what and how that process was monitored.
All that spending is cutting out the number of hospitals, the number of doctors, the number of ambulances, people delaying operations and dying. 136 people died from opioid overdoses in BC last month. There hasn't been 136 people die in Ontario from coronavirus in the last 2 months. So, you know, it's the wrong focus, and people are being rewarded for doing things that are totally going to have repercussions in the future.
I think so. I think the government has to come forward and help the people. Definitely, I'm fully in support of this. Even though I'm not affected personally, but I have contributed over the last 60 years. I'm almost at 420, so I think you have to help, because this is an unforeseen, unexpected travesty. Nobody could have predicted this.
Somewhat. You're going to look back on this and you're going to find out all the mistakes, but right now it's a brand new thing, right? Never dealt with before, so it's kind of a wait and see thing for me.
There's nothing to compare the pandemic with. Whether I vote Liberal or I vote Conservative or NDP, there's no way to really tell how the other parties, if in power at the federal level, would have been effectively or ineffectively able to handle this humongous, devastating pandemic.
I'm satisfied with the CERB and the rent subsidies. So yeah, I'm happy with that program. I think they could do more, because I think the worst is yet to come as the fallout happens. All these restaurants, all the little shops, I think it's still coming. So I'll be curious to see what they do next.
Tensions between Western Canada and the federal government has become increasingly apparent in recent years. Back in the 2019 federal election, no Liberals were elected in the provinces of Alberta or Saskatchewan. Western Canadians have long said they feel ignored and isolated by Ottawa, and sentiment has been growing to break away from Canada altogether. Those who have been around long enough will tell you this harkens back to the National Energy Program, where Pierre Trudeau's governing Liberals wanted more control over the oil and gas industry, creating a wedge between the East and the West. So, how can we prevent history from repeating itself? Our question.
What could the federal government do to repair its relationship with Western Canada?
I don't believe Western separatism is it's going to lead to success for Canada or for anyone. It's going to just create more problems.
They have to basically look back on what Alberta sacrificed for Eastern Canada. So they shouldn't think that, okay, Western Canada, the time has been gone, so they have to look on the new option. I don't think that's necessarily helping them.
To put it this way, the fact that I've traveled to the refinery in New Brunswick, the Irving Oil Refinery, the fact that they import Saudi Arabian and Venezuelan crude to the tune of about 1/3 of their feedstock is just patently wrong, that we should be using Canadian resources as long as we can. So a pathway to get our oil to market.
Actually acknowledge we're here would be a start. We can do Canada just as much good as Ontario if they would acknowledge us and work with us.
They need to reform equalization payments. Not very long ago, they kind of passed it again for another few years under the radar. And they just need to reformulate that whole situation there. And pipelines, we have to have pipelines go through. Look at Calgary right now and Saskatchewan, where I'm from. Just jobs gone, and the economy's really hurting, and he's not doing anything to help that. So
something's got to give. Jobs need to come up, and I'm pro oil and gas when it comes to anything. So they've got to repair it somehow that way.
They need to support our energy sector.
Pipelines, new projects, less regulations. Something that I don't expect from this Liberal government.
Yeah, I think that in general, from both perspectives, I think the federal government and our local kind of cultural and political forces, it would behoove all of us to be a little bit less ideological and a little bit more relational in those conversations, and sort of to let go of any past historical conflicts and just kind of work with current day, current moment, future possibility.
Well, that's the thing. He's never had any input of what the Western provinces wanted, especially when we're dealing with like C-69. You know, there was absolutely no input from any of the producing provinces. So, like, the long-term impact of C-69 is huge across the nation, really, because it's impeding how projects are going to get built in the near future.
Alberta seems to be the new Quebec. They want to separate. They're oil-based. They're in trouble. The West does not like we're a polarized country, east-west, like the States are north-south. I don't see in any time soon that that's going to change, and I don't know what you can do to change it, really.
I don't really know what their concerns are, but there's always the possibility to give more autonomy to certain provinces. That's always been the strategy in Quebec, to try to give more autonomy, more control over things like immigration and other policies. So there's always the possibility in a federated system of giving certain provinces or regions more autonomy. Maybe that would solve it.
I have been following the oil industry and the resources industry for the past 50 years. The Conservatives ruled the Western provinces with resources with their head in the sand. They did not diversify. They gave away all that Heritage Fund money like it was Christmas. Every year they gave them $2,500. We didn't get $2,500. We were taxpayers in Ontario. And now they're crying, we want to separate. We want to... Total garbage. They have to rethink and say, the world is getting out of resources of oil and coal. It's passé. We got to think new.
Build a pipeline.
I'll build another pipeline. They're already building one. They bought out the Trans Mountain pipeline. And it's interesting, isn't it, that they bought that pipeline at a cost of billions of dollars, and they really got no credit from it from Western Canada. It's an interesting phenomenon. It's really hard to turn things around. When you're not liked, you tend to stay not liked. I'm a Western Canadian by birth and upbringing, and so I sympathize with Western Canadians, but I'm not quite sure what else the federal government can do.
Well, I think the pipelines are very crucial to the economy of Canada, and I think they should move ahead forward to implement these pipelines that'll be good for Canada's economy. I think they should go ahead and help out the Western provinces for that reason.
Along, so they've been helping us out all along, like Alberta, and now it's time that we go and help them, but it's to improve our economy instead of us buying oil and gas from other foreign countries. Yes.
I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest. I wish I had a better answer. I mean, they need to stay in Canada because they're taking all the benefits of being in Canada too, and you know, I know they're rich with the oil, so they want to, you know, have their own country, but they need to find a way to. I'm more on the federal side than I'd be on the Alberta side, to be honest, but maybe that's just because I'm an Ontario boy living here all my life. But.
Each province have their own needs, and you know, the only thing is to talk to them and to exchange and to see, you know, nobody can be a big winner and nobody can be a big loser. It has to be in between and, you know, negotiate. That's the only, you know, discussion, talking, listening what the people needs to make people live a better life. That's it.
Which former Canadian Prime Minister holds the distinction of being an MP for the longest period of time? Sir Wilfrid Laurier, Jean Chrétien, John Diefenbaker.
I'll say Chrétien.
Sir Wilfrid Laurier.
Wow, I have no idea. I know who the three are. I'm going to say Chrétien.
I would say Jean Chrétien.
Diefenbaker.
Sir Wilfrid Laurier.
Yeah, Sir Wilfrid Laurier.
It is Sir Wilfrid Laurier.
Okay.
Very good. You got it right.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you both. Have a good day.
The Right Honourable Sir Wilfrid Laurier holds the distinction of being a Canadian Member of Parliament for the longest period of time, 44 years and 11 months, from January 22nd, 1874, until his death on February 17th, 1919. Also, his record as the longest-serving leader of a Canadian political party, 31 years and 8 months, still stands to this day. But he's not done there. Laurier also became Canada's first Francophone Prime Minister, and his 15-year tenure remains the longest unbroken term among those who have held the office.
COVID-19 has seemingly engulfed what most Canadians are talking about, and rightfully so. It's a pandemic, and the health and safety of Canadians is at stake. But just because it takes up all the headlines doesn't mean that there aren't other issues that need to be addressed. So once again, we take it to you. Our question:
what other issues have been overshadowed by COVID-19?
That they have to address the arts. Live music is my world, so that's what I'm mostly worried about. But it also encompasses, like I said, musical theater, ballet, symphony, and all of that.
Everything else must and should have, if it didn't, take a back seat. This has to be the laser focus. There's death, there's destruction, financially, economically. So I'm not going to really isolate and bring forward any issue, frankly, that matters more than this.
Well, yes. I think everything has been sort of dipped down a notch on the priority scale. I can't tell you exactly which ones I think have suffered, but generally I think we've all suffered because we've had to put something else ahead of what our plans were. And I think we've adjusted well.
The only other one is the racial injustice thing, which I don't think has been overshadowed at all. In fact, it's overshadowing COVID, I think, right now, worldwide. So we'll see.
Well, I just walked through the Byward Market, and I can see how many places closed up, how many empty seats at restaurants, how many hairdressers, salons, every second chair blocked off. I know this is going to affect small businesses. It's very clear.
I think one of the biggest issues that we should be focusing on is innovation and growth in Canada. So if you remember NorCal, you look at BlackBerry. So innovation curve, that is in healthcare, it's an opportunity for us right now to look at how we should outshine. So we are G7, right? And we have a lot of resources, great brains in Canada.
Well, right off, I'd say small business closures that need more attention. Cancer treatments and other medical issues that are being overlooked and delayed. And probably domestic violence and suicides are getting very little attention.
We haven't got no pipelines rolling. It's sad to see that we have to bring our oil around the Panama Canal to get to eastern Canada. A pipeline would do that way more quicker. Yeah, I'm not sold on the Liberals.
Almost everything, and that's not surprising. At a dinner party or talking with friends, it almost dominates the conversation. Everything else has been made subordinate to it. So as we come into the fall here, and we all realize that it's going to be a year before there's really anything of an approach back to normal business, is to bring some of these issues to the forefront. And I really like what Aaron O'Toole has done. Don't know that I'll vote Conservative. I probably will, because I'm here in the West. But I just like the fact that he said today, I'm not looking for a fight, and I'm not looking for an election in the fall. The Liberals, and we're well led, and we're not biting at each other. Let's give ourselves 6 to 8 months of stability, and then look what issues need to be addressed.
Maybe the foreign policy, like relationship with China.
Well, even prior to this, job loss. Calgary, I just moved here in September, and Calgary was a ghost town prior to this, and now it's terrifying what's going to happen from here.
Just the deficit in general, revenue, like, you know, the question is like, the federal government has never really been business friendly, or at least has not really presented itself as business friendly. So a lot of the investment by business in general is basically gone away from Canada and gone elsewhere.
I think the economy. I mean, unfortunately, economy before COVID-19, Alberta had a problem. After COVID-19, Alberta still have a more problem. And I don't think that if this COVID situation gone, so the economy is going to come back to its original right away. So it takes a while, maybe around the decades, until we come back to normal life again.
The missing Indigenous women, that's been totally, they're trying to make us not look at the what's happening with the pipeline and all that sort of, don't look over here and over there is the pandemic, you know. It's like, yeah, I think the government's pretty underhanded, but I think that's also the nature of the beast when you're a politician.
Since 2004, Parliament has seen a mix of majority and minority governments by both Conservatives and Liberals. Of course, Justin Trudeau's 2015 majority win was reduced to a minority in 2019. Many people feel a minority government will help foster cooperation between the government and the opposition parties, while some feel a majority government will allow a governing party to govern. So, what do you think? Our question:
would you prefer a majority or minority government?
Well, to me it doesn't matter as long as they're performing some kind of function without too much scandal. Minority governments do work if they have a lot of cooperation, but a majority obviously gets things done.
Always majority.
Why?
Why? Well, it's easier to make decisions in the interests of most people.
But currently, the way things are, I would go for a majority government to push the agenda, and definitely public opinion. That matters. What you guys are doing here, make sure that people understand that what people's mind, right? So yeah, I mean, majority may work well during the circumstances. That's my personal opinion.
Minority government. And the reason is that the minority government has to make a deal with other small groups. So basically, it's not like a dictatorship that one party rules for 4 years and ignores others. So they have to listen for other people.
My preference would be a majority government, to think that there's more action done. My politics don't skew to the right or the left, but I think between the Liberals and the Conservatives, if it is a Liberal minority, it skews to the left, and we have to think about Alberta resources.
Majority government, just for stability in the government, especially in this time of pandemic.
Yeah. Anything you want to just the pandemic, or just?
The pandemic, and then to have like a solid platform for the entire country to go forward.
Probably a minority government. This way it keeps everybody in check. I just wish the Liberal government had a minority government, so this way they were really kept in check right now. But somehow they're playing the political game and managed to operate as a majority right now.
Majority would be better, yeah, I think.
And why so?
Well, because then there's no screwing around. You know, nobody's wondering who's in charge. It's like, we got this. You know, like, just don't ask me which party because I couldn't tell you. But yeah, no, I think it should be a majority.
In some sense, a minority government would be good, but then you get all this backlog of bureaucracy. You get this backlog of nothing being able to get passed through the House. So it's a pick your poison type of thing, I guess.
Majority government.
Why do you think so?
Because I think it facilitates the decision-making process.
I tend to prefer minority governments. I'm an expat from the States where there's a whole different system and it's not a concept. I think minority governments really take advantage of the parliamentary system and kind of enable and support cross-party collaboration, which I think helps.
Small majority, you can still get everything passed, but still have to be accountable.
It's not necessarily who's in power, it's more
a question of stability. I think when somebody wins an election, they ought to have the opportunity to carry out their mandate for a reasonable period of time, because a year, in my view, is just not enough. But so I think in Canada, when we've had minority governments, we've had that. So I have no preference on a minority or majority government. Canadians know that best through their votes.
I prefer minority, because then if it's a majority, whatever they say goes. And that's not fair to the Canadian citizens.
I'm always torn on that, because I like the idea of many voices, but I think it slows everything down too, so it's harder to get things done. However, right now I think everyone needs to be heard, so probably minority.
Probably a minority, because it kind of keeps them in line. I don't think there should be a fall election, not with what's going on. Doesn't make sense. Hopefully they wait and we'll see.
A minority. Because then they can't do just exactly what they want without some kind of oversight. But I just might add, I think if they pulled an election at this time, it would be unconscionable. It would just be not what anybody I know wants.
That's a difficult question to say. So, I think the Liberals have done so much damage, and the NDP is, just positioning themselves to keep their number of seats and so forth. So it's an awkward question. But whoever's in is going to have a very difficult time covering the finances, the overspending. It's going to be disastrous in the long run. So maybe a conservative majority would be best for the country, regardless of which party you think you should support. As the Liberals have shown that it's a disaster, the way they've governed and all the scandals that are swept under the carpet.
In either case, I would look for a majority right now to help everything sail through where it never has needed items to be passed, et cetera, and more people on the same page, so to speak, than ever before.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on the Cable Public Affairs channel. I'm Glenn McGuinness. If you have any comments or questions about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. It's your turn to speak up, and we're listening.